Please be seated. So I'd like to begin with these words by Jamie Anderson. Grief, I've learned, is really love. It's all the love you want to give but cannot give. The more you loved someone, the more you grieve. All of that unspent love gathers up in the corners of your eyes and in that part of your chest that gets an empty and hollow feeling. The happiness of love turns into sadness when unspent. Grief is just love with no other place to go. Welcome, everyone. We gather today with heavy hearts, but with full ones too, to honour and to celebrate the life of Robert John Tonkis, affectionately known as Rob, a man who brought steadiness and kindness to everyone who knew him. Rob's family warmly welcomes each one of you here today, joining us in person and also through our webcast, as we come together as his family, as his friends, and all of those who shared in Rob's world. A world that was shaped by simple joys, gentle humour, and the quiet way that he cared for others. My name is Ali Cameron, and it is a total privilege to lead the celebration of Rob's life. I'm a celebrant with Celebrate People, which is a spiritual and pastoral care organisation with a humanist ethos. And I'm conducting Rob's ceremony in line with our shared beliefs in connection, in respect, and empathy, but above all, the love that we have for others. A funeral brings people together for many reasons. Some of you have known Rob all of his life and all of your lives, and others have known him in the small, everyday moments. And some of you are simply here to pay your respects. But however you've come here today, your presence matters, because it reflects the place that Rob held in his family and amongst his friends and in the many, many lives that he touched. A funeral is also about love, the love that you shared with Rob, the love that you wish you had more time for, and the love that will always remain. I've had the privilege of speaking and spending time with Rob's partner Stuart, and speaking with his brother Alistair, and listening to their memories and their stories. Stories that paint a clear picture of who Rob was: kind, caring, a huge sci-fi fan, and a master chef in training. It's impossible for me to capture every story or memory that each one of you will hold, because every one of you knew Rob in your own way, and each connection tells a different part of who he was. And no ceremony, and certainly no words of mine, could ever contain 57 full, busy, well-lived years. Years that gathered thousands of moments, hundreds of relationships, and more stories than could ever be told in one room. And through so many of those stories ran the constant thread of Stuart, the two of them shaping one another's days, sharing laughter and creating a life that was steady, that was real, and that was deeply theirs. Their bonds sat at the heart of Rob's life, just as Rob sat at the heart of Stuart's. And around them, family and friends played their part too, influencing, supporting, and beautifully colouring the life that they built together. You can all feel that in the memories that you hold and the love for Rob that fills this room today. So today, we gather not only to share the sadness of Rob's loss, but to hold on to the memories that he leaves behind and the place that he will always have in your hearts. His influence, well, that lives on in the stories that you tell, the habits that you picked up from him, the care he gave, the steadiness he brought into your lives, because that's the kind of impact that settles in and becomes part of who you are and carries forward both today and always. Rob. Robert John Tonkiss was born in Birmingham on the 27th of February 1969 to his loving parents, Andrew and Judith. In his early years, life moved around a bit with his dad's work, and he was a charter surveyor, and that took the Tonkiss family to Blackburn, Clitheroe and Formby before they finally settled in the lovely coastal town of Crosby in Merseyside. It was there in Crosby that Rob spent most of his childhood and his school years, finding his feet and beginning to grow into the gentle and thoughtful man that we all remember today. On Rob's 5th birthday, he was absolutely certain he was getting a bike. He talked about nothing else. Instead, he was taken to meet his brand new baby brother Alistair, Al, who by sheer coincidence arrived on the very same day. One look at the tiny bundle of blue, and it was clear to everyone, especially Andrew and Judith, that a baby brother was not the big birthday surprise Rob had been hoping for. Let's just say that the excitement levels were mixed. He did grow to love his wee brother Al, of course, but on that particular birthday, the bike would definitely have gone down better. Al has many memories, very fond memories of his big brother, and one of the clearest is of Rob with a book in his hand, because he hardly ever put one down. He was a bookworm through and through. Rob was also incredibly close to his mum Judith, always helping around the house. And Al will never forget Rob's kindness. Even at times, by his own admission, he maybe didn't quite deserve it. Like the day that the two of them were having a fierce argument, and a particularly raging young Al launched the Hoover at Rob. Thankfully, it missed him, but it didn't miss the radiator. He hit it with such force that the whole thing came straight off the wall. Now, at that point, Al, Rob could have stepped back and let you face the music and the wrath of Andrew and Judith. But that simply was not who Rob was. Instead, the two of you set about fixing the radiator, patching up the wall, and doing their very best to make sure that no one found out. But that was Rob all over. Kind, considerate, steady, and always looking out for people. He didn't want Al to get into bother, and he knew that he could help him, because Rob was simply good to everyone. Then there was the unforgettable holiday in Tenerife, where both Rob and Al took part in the hotel's fancy dress competition. With Judith being as creative as she was, running a wool and a craft shop, The boys were already off to a flying start. So Rob, he appeared as Charlie Chaplin, complete with the walk, the hat and the wee moustache, and he took first place, winning the family a meal in the hotel. And wee Al, dressed head to toe as Marilyn Monroe, wasn't far behind, because he won a prize too, which meant that everyone got a pudding, thanks to his victory ice cream. Al still wishes that he had a photo of their double win. Charlie Chaplin and Marilyn Monroe, side by side, both totally delighted with themselves. And every Christmas, the Tonkiss boys shared a room at their grandparents' house in Birmingham, and they loved waking up on Christmas morning to find their stockings waiting at the bottom of their beds, the classic selection box, a wee orange and a wee toy, before they tore down the stairs to see what Santa had left for the main event. And while they munched their way through their selection sweeties, wee Al would be straight into the Beano, and Rob would already be nose deep in a sci-fi novel, completely absorbed, devouring every single word. Simple moments, but the kind that stay with you, and they're memories that Al will carry forever. Rob and Al always enjoyed time with their wider family, especially their Tonkiss cousins, Claire, Catherine, Michelle and Sarah, and their Heimer cousins, John and Jane. They also hold fond memories of their Heimer cousins, Michelle, Stephanie and Tracy, who moved to Australia when Rob was 5, but remained an important and much-loved part of their family story. And today, there's a special tribute from the family. Michelle Hillman has written a beautiful song in dedication to her cousin Rob, and the words to that can be found in your order of service. When Rob left school, he went back to Birmingham to study nursing at the Queen Elizabeth School of Nursing. And after qualifying, he moved on to the University Hospital Leicester, where he worked in the renal transplant unit, a role that suited his calm and steady nature. And while Al remembers Rob as a great kid and a kind soul, there was definitely moments when Rob got up to mischief. One of the standout moments was from Rob's 22nd birthday and Al's 17th, when Rob invited his wee brother down to Birmingham to stay in the uni halls. Al headed out with Rob and his pals for a few drinks, and let's just say that Al was strongly encouraged to keep up with the lads. By the time they all made it back, Al was more than a little worse for wear, a birthday and certainly a hangover that was not forgotten. 2001. Well, that was a momentous year for Rob. The year that everything changed. Because that was the year that he met Stuart, who became his partner for the next 25 years and the absolute love of his life. And that feeling went both ways. From the very first time they met, Rob and Stuart just clicked. What followed was 18 months of long-distance love, trains, phone calls, weekends squeezed in whenever they could, until they both knew it was time to build a life together every day, not just in the gaps that they could find. And on the 9th of August 2003, Rob arrived, lock, stock and barrel, ready to start that life. And from then on, they shared 23 wonderful years at 63 South Seaton Park. It wasn't the house itself that made it home. It was the two of them in it, side by side, exactly where they both wanted to be. And the agreement from day one was simple. Rob would do the cooking, and Stuart would take charge of the washing and the ironing, playing to their strengths and, mostly, keeping the peace. There was one memorable spell when Rob was laid up with a rotary cuff injury, and Stuart had to step into the kitchen. On the first morning, Rob was asked what he wanted for his breakfast, and Stuart was secretly hoping that the answer might be nothing. No such luck. Rob requested toast, which Stuart dutifully made, spread with Marmite, and cut into neat wee triangles along with a wee cup of tea. At lunchtime, Stuart presented Rob with a pot noodle, again with bread and butter cut into wee triangles. Rob took one look at that pot noodle and with absolute disdain, said, "Well, that needs more water." And by tea time, Rob had had enough. Sling and all, he was back in the kitchen, peeling the tatties and keeping Stuart as far away as possible, right out his road. Some things, it turns out, were definitely better done Rob's way. When Rob arrived in East Lothian, he took up a post as a staff nurse in the Royal Infirmary and later at the Borders General. In 2008, he took a change in direction and moved to work with LCAP, supporting adults with physical and learning disabilities as part of a 24-hour care team. It was a step away from hospital nursing, but the heart of the work stayed the same for Rob, giving people the best care, helping them live well, and always keeping things person-centred. That ethos never ever left him. Rob was a quiet, content, caring and helpful person who would have done anything for anyone. He never looked for the spotlight, and he was happiest just getting on with things in his own and steady way. He'd stay just long enough to pass on the message when he was on the phone, as he was famously efficient, and then he was off. Stuart said, "No chit-chat, no small talk, the job was done." We know that Rob loved to cook, a talent that he learned from his mum, Judith, who he was absolutely devastated to lose in 2003. Cooking was his comfort, his creativity, and one of the ways that he showed just how much he cared. He and Stuart loved having friends over, and they had their roles down to a fine art. Stuart chatting, entertaining and topping up the drinks, and Rob in his element in the kitchen, or at the barbecue with his pinion on the sunny days. He could easily have given a few MasterChef contestants a run for their money. Rob's nature meant that he took time to get to know people, and then he would come out of his shell. He was known for quietly slipping into the kitchen just to fill up his glass, and then gently closing the door behind him so he could get on with the cooking in peace. There were plenty of times that Stuart would say to guests, "Oh, I better go and see if Rob needs a hand," only to be met with a firm and unmistakable "out" from behind the door. But when dinner was ready, Rob was the first to shout everyone through. He was ever present, not loud, not showy, but in his own quiet and unmistakably Rob way. When Rob first came to Port Seaton, he was only just learning to drive. But his lessons continued, with Stuart's pal Kenny taking him out in between lessons to help him build up his confidence. And full credit to both Rob and Kenny, because the learner car was a 1982 Ford Fiesta with one careful lady owner, Stuart's Auntie Agnes, 43,000 miles on the clock, and a manual choke. Now, plenty of folk in here will remember how tricky those were, especially when you were trying to not make it look like the car was running on kangaroo petrol. But Rob, he passed first time. And 10 days later, he and Stuart jetted off to Disneyland. And when he got home, Stuart was hit with the worst jet lag of his life, constantly disorientated, walking into things, and probably the quietest he's ever been in his life. And as they drove past the power station in Cockenzie, clouds of smoke started billowing from under the bonnet. The wee Fiesta had finally given up. And in Stuart's own words, he thought he was sent for. He had no energy to get out of the seat and run, so he just had to sit there and hope for the best. But that dramatic exit marked the end of Auntie Agnes's faithful Fiesta, and a shiny new Corsa soon took pride of place in the drive. The wee Corsa turned out to be a great car, taking Rob and Stuart on countless trips to Liverpool to visit Rob's dad, Andrew, and his wife, Carol. And although Rob didn't see his brother Al regularly, with Al having moved to Australia, that bond between him meant so much. Rob was grateful to Al for bringing his nephew Ryan into the world and his wife Linda into the family too. They spent a week every September up in Nethy Bridge with her great friends, That was a great tradition that both Stuart and Rob loved. And true to form, Rob liked to take charge of the cooking there too. And to Stuart's delight, he sometimes even took to tidying up and the dishes. Rob and Stuart have been blessed with many friends, both here and in Nethe and beyond. People who mean the world to them and who absolutely count as family. Those friendships, those shared weeks away and simple routines were a huge part of the life that they built together. Stuart and Rob did London a few times, and somehow they always got amazing weather, which led to some rare moaning from Rob, because he had grand plans for indoor attractions like the Victoria and Albert Museum. But in that kind of sunshine, Stuart wasn't having it. Instead, Stuart had Rob walking the full length of the Thames, Westminster to Tower Bridge and back, making the absolute most of the good weather. They'd sit for hours in Leicester Square, people watching and soaking it all in. But the truth is that Rob would just go wherever Stuart went, to the dark side of the moon if he had to. They were yin and yang, salt and pepper, fish and chips. Different, but in all the right ways, balancing each other out, because they were absolutely made for one another. Well, there was that one time that Rob was absolutely furious with Stuart, and that didn't happen often. It was a roasting, hot, sticky summer's day, and Rob was meant to pick up Stuart from the train station in the Pans, but that had to wait until the gas engineer finished servicing the boiler. When he finally collected Stuart, he broke the news gently. There's been a wee problem, because the boiler had blown up, and there'd be no water until the engineer came with the part the next day. Well, those of you who know Stuart would know that he nearly blew a gasket. He was absolutely melting. And Rob being Rob, he hadn't hassled the engineer. He just accepted that they'd fix it in the morning. Stuart, on the other hand, marched straight through the door, picked up the phone and called the gas board to demand that they return that evening because, in his words, this was an emergency. And to make sure that they took him seriously, Stuart explained truthfully that his partner had a heart condition, and then added absolutely not truthfully that Rob was also doubly incontinent and that there was no way that they could go without water. Rob was absolutely mortified, and he was banging about the house shouting, "How dare you?" while Stuart continued his performance down the phone. And indeed, the engineer did arrive at 9 p.m, but it totally backfired on you, Stuart, because they still couldn't fix it until they got the part the next day. Rob was raging, Stuart was unfazed, and the boiler still broken. Rob loved many things. His iPad was permanently attached to his right hand, and that was absolutely sacred, because Stuart was never allowed to touch it. He loved classical theatre and musicals, especially The Phantom of the Opera, and he loved audiobooks of every kind. But his main passion, and the thing he was absolutely mad about, was sci-fi, especially Doctor Who. Rob wasn't just a fan, he was absolutely obsessed, and he could recall the tiniest details from episodes aired decades apart, right down to the most obscure plot twists. So much so that he could easily have been a specialist subject of his on Mastermind. Rob also loved anything to do with antiques. He watched every programme going: Antiques Roadshow, Antiques Road Trip, Flog It, The Bidding Room, Money for Nothing, all of which poor Stuart suffered and endured. But it was Money for Nothing that made Rob a TV star. After a night of coughing and spluttering, Stuart and Rob still kept up their COVID tip slot and took an old gate to the dump. Just as it was being hoyed into the skip, a man appeared and asked if he could have it. He then announced that he was from Money for Nothing and that Stuart would need to be filmed or they couldn't take the gate. Well, Stuart, you were feeling totally rotten and you were having none of it. but he was no good on telly looking like that. So, Rob, poor, unsuspecting Rob, he was simply told, in no uncertain terms, that he was going to be the one on the camera. And he did it, bless him. But he was nothing short of awkward when the crew later turned up at the house and handed over the 75 quid that they'd made from the gate. And before they arrived, he had his orders. Stuart had given him strict instructions: don't you dare tell them that money's going to charity, because it's mine. But Stuart did treat Rob to a meal with the winnings. And mind you, letting Rob hang up his penny for the night and enjoy a rare break from cooking was simply that. It was rare. But it was well earned, wasn't it, Stuart? In October 2025, Rob suffered a heart attack that he never fully recovered from. He'd been unwell for some time, and the way things changed towards the end was quick, and it was deeply unexpected. The last 6 months were incredibly hard for Rob. He underwent a heart transplant on the 30th of January this year. And although everyone hoped it would be the miracle that he needed, Rob faced one complication after another, with no real chance of regaining his strength. And on the 24th of April, the sun set for Rob, with his sunshine Stuart at his side, just as he had been throughout. A truly devastating loss for Stuart and all of Rob's family, and friends whose hearts were truly not ready to let him go. Today is about remembering Rob exactly as he was: gentle, thoughtful, quietly funny, and absolutely full to the brim with kindness. He was someone who cared deeply, who never made a fuss, and who made life simple, better simply by being himself. And now we're going to take a few moments to think about Rob and the place that he holds in each of your hearts. It's time for you to reflect on the relationship that you shared with him in whatever way feels right for you. And if you hold spiritual or religious beliefs, you may wish to offer your own farewell or quiet thoughts. Or you might simply let your mind drift to a moment that captures Rob just for you. A meal he cooked for you, a kindness he showed, or a time when he just made your life feel that bit brighter. Whatever comes to mind, let those memories rest with you now. Could there have been more a perfect tune? We've now reached the moment in our ceremony where we're going to say our final farewell to Rob's body. So if you're able to, can I please now ask you all to stand? Rob, we hold you close now. A gentle, thoughtful man with a kind heart and a way of caring that threaded right through your life. You never sought the spotlight, but you made life better for the people around you just simply by being there. We remember you, Rob, as the wee boy who moved from place to place with your family, always with a book in your hand. The big brother who protected Al, even when mischief had gone that wee bit too far. The son who adored your mum, Judith, and learned from her the joy of cooking and for looking after others. Rob, we remember you as the nurse who gave your best to every patient, and later the carer who brought dignity, patience, and compassion to the people that you supported. You lived your values quietly and steadily. And we remember the great love you shared with Stuart, a partnership full of laughter, routines, adventures, and the everyday kind of devotion that builds a life. 25 years of companionship, of shared meals, shared holidays, and umpteen shared stories. And that unmistakable balance of yin and yang that made you simply right for each other. You were happiest in the kitchen, or with a sci-fi novel, or watching your beloved Doctor Who. Happiest when the house was full of friends, especially when you could slip away and just cook in peace. You were happiest, Rob, when life was simple and the people you loved were close by. These last months were incredibly hard for you, Rob, and you faced them with the same quiet courage that you showed all throughout your life. You left this world with your sunshine, Stuart, right beside you, held in love to the very end. And so now, Rob, with the deepest love, gratitude and respect, we commit you to your place of rest. May you be welcomed by those who went before you, your gorgeous mum, Judith, and your dad, Andrew, held gently and peacefully in their love, Rob, just as you so deserve. May your spirit stay bright in the memories of those who loved you. Because, Rob, you were loved beyond measure, and that love will carry you now and be with you forever and always. We let you go, Rob, with full hearts and a gratitude that will never, ever fade. Please be seated. Right now I'm in a different place, and though we seem apart, I'm closer than I ever was, because I'm there inside your heart. I'm with you when you greet each day, and while the sun shines bright. And I'm there to share the sunsets too. I'm with you every night. I'm there with you when times are good, to share a laugh or two. Or if a tear should start to fall, I'll still be there with you. And when that day arrives that we're no longer apart, I'll smile and hold you close to me, forever in my heart. Rob showed us that the good things in life are often the simple ones. A quiet laugh, a meal made with care, time spent with the people that you love, and the comfort of just being together. He reminds us that we don't need big moments to make a difference. It's the everyday kindness and the small acts of thoughtfulness that stay with people forever. Rob's family know that there are many people who were important in his life, too many to mention today. But what they want to do is to thank each and every one of you for your friendship and the support and the kindness that you showed to him. Your presence here today and in these past weeks have brought real comfort during a very difficult time. And your messages of sympathy, cards and flowers have meant a great deal. We keep Rob's family in our thoughts and all of those who will feel his loss most sharply in the quieter parts of their days. And we send our love to Stuart, his partner of 25 years, his constant and the person who shared the centre of Rob's world. Rob's family warmly invite each one of you to join them at the Musselburgh Golf Club. So if you come out of the crematorium and you turn right, go straight over the first roundabout, under the bridge and the next one, and you will see, a couple of minutes, you will see the golf club on your right. Because they want you to join them there, because they want to share memories, your memories of Rob, to raise a glass and to continue celebrating Rob in a way that he would have appreciated, surrounded by people who loved and cared for him. As you leave today, there will be a collection for the British Heart Foundation in Rob's memory. And any contribution that you feel able to make would be appreciated. And you can give here or at the golf club if you wish. But as you all leave the crematorium today, please take care of yourselves and look out for each other. And may your sadness ease with time, and may the good memories come back easily. But may Rob's gentleness and his love stay with each of you and help to keep you steady in the days ahead. All that remains for me to do today is to thank Rob's family for trusting me with his ceremony. It's been a privilege to stand with you. But for one last time, for the one and the only, Rob Tonkes, can we please stand? Thank you, everyone.